All right, let's dive into a piece of Gothic prose that takes something we think of as peaceful, a cemetery, and totally flips it on its head. We're going to see how a place of final rest gets twisted into something, well, something much, much darker. Okay, this one line, this is everything. This is the key that unlocks the whole story. It gets us right inside the head of our main character, the prince. For him, a graveyard isn't an ending, it's a resource. It's a field just overflowing with regret, and he's here to harvest it. This idea sets the stage for everything that's about to happen. So we start right where the story does, with the prince's arrival. This first part isn't just about setting the scene. It's about establishing the character and the very unique, very malevolent rules that apply to this particular piece of unholy ground. The very first thing he does is cross a line, a boundary. He steps over this iron threshold, and with that one step, he's deliberately moving from our world into the hallowed ground of the cemetery. The text even says his goal is to bruise this sacred seal. So yeah, from the very first moment, this is an act of desecration. And this is where we get that crucial reframing of the whole place. The prince doesn't see souls resting in peace. Not at all. He sees potential. To him, every single tombstone is just a marker for a life filled with broken promises and deep regrets. This isn't a city of the dead. For him, it's a warehouse of despair. And of course, timing is everything. He doesn't just show up on any old night. He arrives at a very specific moment, an hour when the barrier between the physical world, the soil, and the spirit world gets weak, or as the text says, porous. This hour has a name, and it has a very specific power. And that brings us right to the title, the Mocking Hour. It's also called the Devil's Hour, and the story describes it as being like a supernatural key. It doesn't just unlock the cemetery gates, you see, it unlocks the graves themselves. It gives the prince direct access to all that spiritual gunk that's been left behind. So the prince is in, the time is right, but his first big move, it's probably not what you're expecting. And it's so important to get this, he's not raising zombies, he's not after skeletons, he's summoning something way more insidious than that. This quote just lays it all out there. He has zero interest in the physical body. In fact, he sees decay as his own personal handiwork, a masterpiece. His focus is 100% on what's left behind, those echoes of regret that are still clinging to the headstones. So how does he do it? The whole process happens in 3 clear steps. First, there's a sound, this low, vibrating hum that just cuts through the silence. Second, the power of the hour does its thing, turning the locks on those narrow houses of the dead. And then finally, these shadows of memory are literally pulled right out of the dirt, not as whole ghosts, but as fragments of failure. And this just brilliantly nails what he's actually harvesting. Not ghosts, the dregs of the soul. The term itself implies that these are the heaviest, most bitter parts of a person's life. The failures and regrets so toxic they were literally left behind, rejected even by heaven. And for the prince, well, that's the good stuff, the purest ingredients. So once he's gathered his raw materials, his little army of regret, the prince starts a very deliberate campaign. He's not just taking a stroll, he is actively corrupting the symbols of faith and hope and memory that are all over this cemetery. I mean, just look at this transformation. It says it all. On the one hand, you got the marble angel, this beautiful symbol of hope looking up to the heavens. But after the prince passes by, look what happens. The pure white stone turns into this weeping gray. Its wings are drooping, not because something pushed them, but because of an invisible, crushing despair. He literally makes stone feel emptiness. Then he seeks out a very particular spot, the potter's field. This is the corner of the graveyard reserved for the unknown, the forgotten, the people who had no one left to remember them or pray for them. For the prince, this total lack of faith and memory creates a spiritual vacuum, which makes it the most powerful and potent place for him to do his work. And it's here, in this place of ultimate obscurity and decay, that he gets on his knees and whispers this line to the worms. It's such a chilling reveal, isn't it? His kingdom, his power, it's not built on epic acts of evil. It's built on all the small, forgotten, decayed things in the world. Which brings us to the grand finale. This is where we see what all this work has been for. What was the purpose of this whole visit? What has he actually accomplished? Well, the entire cemetery is about to be transformed. As the mocking hour hits its peak, the prince turns the whole graveyard into his own private theater. He forces those summoned regrets to reenact their worst moments, their downfalls, all for his own grim and private amusement. The whole place becomes the stage for a silent symphony of the lost. And check out what he does to the chapel. It's so clever. He doesn't tear it down. He doesn't break in. He just surrounds it. He cuts it off from the rest of the world with a perimeter of pure despair, making the House of Faith this lonely island in a sea that he created. He wins by containment, not by direct destruction. So, naturally, this leads us to the biggest question of the whole piece. Why? Why do all of this? Why turn a cemetery into a theater of misery and isolate a chapel? What was the point? Well, the answer is right here, in the transformation. He's taken a place of peace and weaponized it. He's turned it into a factory of fear. But the most crucial part is this. The cemetery is no longer a border between the living and the dead. The prince has turned it into a bridge. By corrupting this sacred ground, he has built a highway for his dark intentions to march right into the sleeping village, leaving its heart totally exposed. And that's the thought we're left with. His journey through the graves is over, but the consequences are just getting started. The story leaves us with this final, really haunting question. If a symbol of peace, like a graveyard, can be so completely corrupted and turned into a weapon, where does that influence actually stop?